friends, Ishified here and welcome to my indie game devlog episode 2. Before we start, I would just like to say that I am so thankful for your support. The comments have been nothing but kind and supportive and I really appreciate it, you guys. It makes this journey easier and it helps me stay committed to the project. Also, a little shout out to my students who are enthusiastic about this devlog series. Really guys, thank you. I hope that this series could provide some insight on what you can do when working on your own projects. And without further ado, here we go! Our programmer, Totodile, has been hard at work. He has finished integrating basic controls into the build and we can finally see our little character walk. Look at that little booger, so happy that they can finally explore the world. Speaking of our world, I can now show you those trees that I mentioned last time. Yeah, I really love me some trees. In here, you can see the art style that we are really going for. It is stylized and hand-drawn, but there is still some feeling of depth because of the shadows. The color palette is also both not too dark and not too light. We have also set up a better way to do Z ordering. Now, Z ordering is the way that the program prioritizes which image shows up first and which image ends up at the back of other sprites. For example, this is how the setup looks like in 2D. And this is how it looks in 3D. You see that the grass is clearly behind all these items in front, but Z ordering doesn't care where the grass is. If we lower the Z order of this tree, let's change it from 2 to 0 and move this around a little bit. Despite the tree being in front, it still disappears as if it is behind the grass. See here, it's clearly in front, but if we move just a little, the grass covers it up. That is one of the problems we encountered in the game jam. We had too little time back then and we weren't able to address it. Now, we have all the time in the world. Since the player character is a moving object, we have to make sure that wherever they go, the player's perspective of where they should be in a 3D space is not broken. Like the tree leaves over the player shouldn't appear behind the player's head. And that's what you see here. Totodile had set it up so that if the player's origin point, in this case this area, is lower than the object's origin point, which is this, the player's Z ordering would increase compared to that object. So the player's Z ordering moves around in reference to where they are in the Y-axis. It seems really simple from the player's perspective, but it's one of those things that could make or break the believability of a game's world. So we wanted to make sure that we worked on this before layouting any areas in the game. Once we were finished with that, I wanted to start laying out the first area of the game already. Then I realized that I didn't really have a solid grasp of the island's general layout. So my first order of business for this sprint was to make a first draft of the island. The mini-map that you see at the top left is actually my reference. I don't really have any experience laying out an area this big, so I had to have some sort of guide. I also ended up using the reference as a color palette because it's pretty close to the general color I wanted for the island. Now, the player's tribe just recently settled into the island. They have only been here for a few months, so their settlement is still fairly close to the beach. The island is also fairly untouched, or so they think. That is why there's a lush forest surrounding their settlement. The tribe is also unfamiliar about the supernatural beings that lives in the area. They have encountered this kind of beings before and may have brought some with them, but what lives here may be different from what they know. One of those so-called beings is the Lady of the Lake named Alona. She lives very close to the settlement and you can actually see her lake at the lower right of the village. Alona starts out pretty distrustful of the tribe and the player characters, since they are fairly new to the island, but as the game goes on, you'd get to know her more. When I was drafting how the game starts, I wanted the player character to wake up in a clearing. It would be the first time the player and the character encounters one of these entities that live in the island, and this encounter leads to the player being harmed. They try to struggle back home and end up near the lake where the lady lives, where she helps the player just short from dying. That's usually how I end up deciding what areas are going to be included in the map. There are story beats tied into that location. And there are also some areas that are still pretty rough, like I'm still figuring out what they are for. For example, there are 2 caves in this map. I know I wanted some kind of cave exploration in the game, but I also felt like there should be another one that would provide a whole different experience. Although I don't really have any idea what that experience is. There is also a secret pathway at the left of the village and the hermit lodge at the bottom right. I have some rough ideas for them and they fit some of the characters I've written, but the ideas are still pretty small. I ended up including them in the draft just so I could keep it in mind and maybe make use of them later on. Oh, and this is also this mystical area hidden away from the settlement. This is what I would call the Fae Gate. It is essentially the connection between the world of the Fae and the mortal world. Also another rough idea since currently the story doesn't really involve crossing over to the other side, but we'll see what happens. And that is most of what I can show you from this sprint. I'm currently laying out the village, so I actually already have a few assets ready for them. These are just the common items we need to populate the area. We'll definitely add some more in the future. Once again, thank you for making it to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed what we showed and talked about. If you did, give a thumbs up. I will be posting videos every other week, and in the next video we would like to show you systems that we made inside Unity so that editing a map and adding events could be easier. I would also love to walk you around the village and introduce you to the people that lives in it. This is episode 2 of this indie game devlog. Thank you friends for tuning in. Be nice, be curious, and as always, see you next time.